Alright, so apparently my last video caused a little bit of drama. Yes, the violin is most definitely harder than piano. And truthfully, the part that shocked me the most was that this is something I thought was general consensus in the music teaching community. So in this video, I'm going to explain why the violin is harder than piano and how it's not even close. So in order to be as thorough as possible, we're not just going to look at the beginner stage where you're just learning to play the violin or you're learning to play the piano. We're also going to look at the average player who's taking lessons for, let's say, 2, 3, maybe 4 years in both of them. And in order to have no bias at all, at the very end, we're going to go ahead and ask AI for its opinion as well. When it comes to the beginning stage, I don't even think this is debatable in any way, shape, or form. I think basically everybody, player or teacher, knows that learning to play the violin is much harder than learning to play the piano. When you first start learning an instrument, you're focused on learning how the instrument works, producing a sound, and just kind of seeing how it feels in your hands. The amount of time it'll take for the beginning piano student to play something recognizable that sounds good, like let's say Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, is maybe one lesson. Now let's look at the violin player. By the time you get past how to hold the violin, how to hold your bow, how to have the correct posture, how to make sure your left hand doesn't collapse when you're holding it, how to actually bow on the string, how to make sure your bow is not crooked when you are bowing, how to make sure you place your fingers on the stickers that we had to place on the violin just to know where to put your fingers, and put all of that together, you are well past a month or 2 of lessons. So judging by the fact that it takes you at least a month or 2 before you can play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star without physically cringing because of how it sounds, I'm pretty sure violin takes the cake. Before I go on to the average player, there's a major difference between these two instruments. Once you're past learning how to read the notes, a piano student spends years learning pieces. A violin student spends those same years still learning how to control their instrument to get it to sound like something enjoyable. Let's take now the average player who's taken lessons for, let's say, 2, 3, maybe 4 years. For violin, this is someone who's maybe in their school orchestra, you know, they've played a few pieces, maybe they're Suzuki 2, maybe 3. And for piano, this is a student that has played all the regular songs like Moonlight Sonata 1, that has done Fur-Elise. You know, they've gotten past the point where they're learning how to actually read the music. They've played a few pieces and they're somewhat familiar with their instrument. This is what I'm going to classify as the average serious piano student and the average serious violin student. Now take both of them, put them in a practice room for 2 months, same time, same practice, and give them a piece that is outside of their level of play. They now have 2 months to learn this piece, which is clearly out of their reach, but they have to learn it and they have to give us as best performance as they can after 2 months. For piano, let's say this will be Moonlight Sonata number 3, and for violin, we can do Paganini 24. Both of those pieces are well out of the reach for a student that's been playing for 2 or 3 years. Provided both of them know how to read the notes on the sheet music, the pianist will now spend those 2 months figuring out which notes to play and then bringing it up to speed, then getting the phrasing going and getting into one package deal. The violinist, however, is going to spend the majority of those 2 months simply learning how to play a portion of the techniques required physically to produce the sounds needed for the violin. After the violinist has learned how to produce the techniques to play this higher than their level piece, they now have to worry about being in tune at the same time as doing those techniques. Remember, both of those issues a pianist does not have to go through. No matter which way you put it, the violinist is always going to be fighting bigger and more battles than the pianist is, aside from reading the notes. And to the rebuttal that says, but listen, we have to read 2 clefs at the same time, a student that's been taking lessons for 3 years already knows how to read the music. And even if I give you the benefit of the doubt and say that you have extra work to do because you are reading 2 clefs, you are still breaking it down to reading the notes and playing the notes. Not because piano is easy, but the critical difference is that the piano player receives both pitch and tone by default from their instrument. The violin student must manufacture both from scratch. So if you listen to anything I just said, mind me if I say the violin takes the cake. Now listen, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm incredibly biased. I don't know what I'm talking about at all, and I should just subscribe to the usual, they're both equally as hard. Well, what is the closest we can get to an unbiased opinion? Let's ask AI. But in order to be incredibly unbiased, I'm going to be in incognito mode, I'm gonna be in guest mode, and I'm gonna try out 3 different AI models. Surely this will give us some sort of insight. And so here we are. Please notice that we are on incognito mode. We haven't logged in, and we're gonna go ahead and hit the first one, which is going to be ChatGPT. I'm gonna keep this simple so there can be no bias at all. Which instrument is harder, violin or piano? Now, in order not to get stuck in infinite explanations, we're gonna make sure this is as simple and as unbiased as possible by asking it just to give us a one-word answer. Please give me a one-word answer. Without further ado, ChatGPT. Violin. So here we are on Gemini. You can see that I am on incognito mode. I have not signed in or anything, and we're gonna keep this just as simple. Which instrument is harder, violin or piano? Same thing, to keep it completely unbiased and nice and simple, we're gonna go, please give me a one-word answer. 3, 2, 1. We once again get the violin. And the third one that I know exists is going to be Grok, and we're gonna do the exact same thing. Which instrument is harder, violin or piano? Please give us a one-word answer. 3, 2, 1. Sign in to continue your conversation. The conversation hasn't even started. All right, I've managed to make an account, and now I have a Grok account, and let's just go ahead and ask it the question. Which instrument is harder, violin or piano? Please give us a one-word answer. And the answer is violin. Now, I hope I haven't turned away all the piano players that watch this channel. I must make one thing clear. Piano is in no way, shape, or form an easy instrument. But if we're going to ask the question if violin or piano is harder, we must be honest that all the evidence points to one answer.